Okay. 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 Chair, I can confirm that we're now live to the public and the meeting's being recorded.
Sorry, are we just going to wait one more minute?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
We are just on 10 o'clock, according to my...
Yes, we are. Yes. So I'll make a start then as we are it. So, good morning then, and welcome to East Devon District Council's virtual car parking task and finish forum meeting on the 11th of February 2021. I'm your chair, Vice Chair, Councillor Val Ranger, and I would like to welcome anyone watching the meeting via the live streaming. All participants here today are taking part remotely, and as well as being live streamed, the meeting is being recorded. So please bear this in mind throughout. And may I remind you to be careful with your language. May I also remind members that the Code of Conduct applies throughout this meeting. We reserve the right to remove and disconnect any participant who is disrupting the meeting by any means. Please turn any telephone devices off or to silent. As this car parking task and finish forum meeting is dependent on internet connection and a power supply, in the event of a break in the internet connection or a power cut, please bear with us as we try to reconnect. After 15 minutes, if we're not able to reconnect, we'll consider the meeting adjourned and reconvene at a later date. Please check the committee page on our website for details. Please make sure all microphones are muted when you're not speaking to avoid any background noise. Keep your points short and do not repeat points that have already been made, and do not interrupt. If you wish to comment, please raise your electronic hand and wait to be called. All councillors have been sent the agenda for today's meeting. Any members of the public who want to view the agenda can do so by visiting our website, www.eastdevon.gov.uk. We'll now start the meeting by doing a roll call of committee members here present. Can you now please unmute your microphone, and when you hear your name, please confirm by saying present. When you've confirmed you're present, please mute your microphone again.
Okay, so I'll start. Councillor Colin Brown. Councillor Bloxham.
Present.
Councillor Chapman. Councillor Coleman. Councillor Davey.
Present.
Councillor Howe. Councillor Ingham. Councillor Ranger.
Present.
Councillor Rylance.
Present.
And Councillor Whibley.
So I can confirm that we are quorate today. So agenda item 1 is public speaking. And we have 2 members of the public. So can I invite the first public speaker to introduce themselves and address the meeting? You have already. Sorry. Oh, right, sorry. So can I invite our first public speaker to introduce themselves and address the meeting? You have up to 3 minutes to speak, and you will be given a 30-second reminder. So our first public speaker, I think it's Liza McLean.
Hello, sorry, I've just been let in and I'm just unmuting myself. From looking at the agenda for today's meeting, it appears that the different ways in funding the electric charge points is going to be discussed. Now, in a previous TaFF meeting, I have heard mention made to there being a need to make more from parking revenue to pay for these charging points by increasing car park charges and charging in the free out-of-town car parks. With the concern for the knock-on effects to businesses caused by this, I have 2 questions on the matter. My first question is, why would the need for more funding from car parking revenue be necessary when other councils have had their car park charging points fully funded by private companies and central government funding? This central government funding does seem to cover car park charging points that have the car parks have a residential aspect. And my second question is, if it is decided that East Devon do use council funds to install these electric charging points, I would like to inquire as to the council's predicted income which would be generated from the use of these electric charging points. Surely this has the potential, again, as a reason that extra parking revenue is not needed for the installation of these charging points. Thank you.
Thank you for your contribution. And you'll now be put back into the waiting room, and you're welcome to view the meeting live on the council's YouTube page.
Lovely, thank you.
Thank you. So can I invite our second public speaker now to introduce themselves and address the meeting. So you have up to 3 minutes to speak and will be given a 30-second reminder. So our next speaker is Robert Cathro. Robert, you're muted. Mr. Cathro, you're muted.
Good morning. Sorry for that. I'd unmuted myself and somebody muted me. Right, so thank you and good morning to the committee. I'll be as brief as I can. My subject is motorhomes. I do understand what the various bodies managing Exmouth are trying to achieve with attracting more visitors to our beautiful town. But the experiment that was started in 2018 has led to some unintended consequences. I've counted 11 in all, and I'm happy to send those, the details, if somebody will provide me with the right email address. I won't go through them all now, but some of them are quite unpleasant for residents, and I do talk to a lot of residents when I'm out and about. I think some of the members of the committee already have my email, but as I say, I'm happy to forward it. There's been a lot of damage for residents from effectively what is an increasing number of motorhomes, and I'm sure it can be controlled. And my purpose today is to ask that the TaFF tries to improve the impact of motorhomes on the town. The reason I'm here today particularly is the recent report about the TaFF meetings deliberations in the Devon Live article gave me some cause for concern that we might be in danger of repeating some of the unintended consequences. I do have some positive proposals that could help resolve some of the issues, which again, I'm happy to share if you would kindly tell me who to talk to and work with on that. And that's it really, it's very simple. We've created some unintended consequences with motorhomes and those problems need addressing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cathro, for your contribution. In fact, the next meeting of the car parking TaFF, which is on the 3rd of March, that meeting at the moment is proposed to be on the subject of camper vans and motorhomes. So
Thanks.
We'd welcome to hear from you again. Thank you. So you'll now be put back into the waiting room, and you're welcome to view the meeting live on the council's YouTube page. Thank you. So agenda item 2 then is minutes of the previous meeting. If anyone has a comment on the set of minutes from the 2nd of February 2021, please indicate this by raising your electronic hand. I do have a point to note myself from those minutes. I'll just make that point now. So my comment was on point 46, paragraph 2. Where there was mention of there seemed to be a suggestion in those minutes that we had suggested that people could park their camper vans on a £100 a year parking permit, whereas in fact I think the sense of the meeting was that that was not what we wanted, that people could have winter storage for their caravans, for their camper vans for £100 on a £100 a year parking permit. So I think there was just a slight amendment needed there to ensure that the minutes reflect the the tone of the meeting. So in terms of wording for that, so it currently says members were asked to consider a number of issues, including the management of domestic refuge and effluent, whether to consider offering better facilities, and whether to offer the opportunity to store larger motorhomes in car parks over the winter at a cost of an annual permit of £100. And I don't think that is what we suggested. I think we suggested, could we offer winter storage? But I think actually what we were saying was we should not be letting people think that they can buy a £100 a year permit in order to store their caravans for the winter. So I think that just needs an amendment. So whether it could be just inserting a couple of words, instead of whether to offer the opportunity, that we would want to discourage the sense that, or discourage the belief that owners can store larger motorhomes in car parks over the winter for the cost of an annual permit of £100. Do other members agree? Sorry, I can see Councillor Davey has his hand raised. Councillor Davey, would you like to make a point?
Yeah, it was just to interject there, Chair. I seem to remember that Andrew's report specifically ruled out allowing owners of motorhomes and camper vans to buy the annual parking permit. It was specifically excluded from the notes. So yes, I don't quite know how that came up really.
Yes,
I think we did discuss winter storage, but not any kind of charge, and I don't think there was a great deal of appetite for that anyway.
No, I think we agreed it was actually more complicated. The more you thought about it, the more complicated it got because of security issues. Can we just change the wording of those minutes? Do we have to make, can I take advice please from our Democratic Services officers? How do we do this? How do we amend those minutes?
Chair, we get, not muted. We can make the amendment to the minutes. We can go back to the recording and double check what was said, or use the wording as you've just indicated. Or I think Andrew Ennis is here. I don't know if he'd want to make a comment about what was actually said at the last meeting.
If I may, Chair, my recollection is close to what Councillor Davies said. I think there was some discussion. What used to happen prior to the existing policy is that people were storing their motorhomes in car parks using the cheap annual permit. Current policy prohibits that. And I think what we agreed was we'd now revisit that at the next meeting on the 3rd of March, and we'll look at whether we want to provide storage or not. But it wouldn't be on those same terms. It would be more expensive if we wanted to do it, and we'd have to find a suitable site to do it. That's what I recall we discussed last time.
Thank you. So should we not agree? Oh, I beg your pardon. I'm sorry. So I've got Councillor Rylance who wishes to speak, and then Maddie Chapman. Councillor Rylance.
Thank you, Chair. No, I just wanted to add that we did actually discuss the situation of where people use their small motorhome as a second vehicle as well. You know, and if it fitted within a parking bay, then potentially that would be okay. That is one of the things that we did talk about. I just wanted to leave that there because we mustn't forget about people who do use theirs as a second vehicle.
Yes, understood. Thank you. Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we did agree that people that use it as a vehicle and has to park at home, we did not agree that they should be able to park all year in our car parks, bearing in mind that there are firms around that do take caravans and camper vans, and they should park there over winter if they don't use it every day or outside their property.
Thank you. So to proceed on this, sorry, we've got a non-committee member, Councillor Kay Gill. Does Councillor Kay Gill wish to speak?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just had, I'm just wanted to get a clear definition on what people are referring to as camper vans, motorhomes, and you've obviously talked about small camper vans. Both Councillor Chapman and Councillor Rylance talked about using second vehicles. Now, the way I see the definition of a camper van is a small van like a VW type a vehicle, and a motorhome is much larger, which has got a full kitchen and shower unit, etc. So can we just get a clear definition of what vehicles you're referring to when you talk about them?
Yeah, if I can just stop you there. So in the minutes, it refers to larger motorhomes. So I think what we need to do, possibly, and I can take advice on this, is to not agree these minutes at this meeting. Is that in order that we would have the minutes corrected and brought back to the next meeting?
Agree, Chair.
People happy with that? Do we need to vote on that, or can we just agree to do that?
Chair, if I may, in the interest of moving the agenda on, we can just simply say that you could say that the minutes are agreed, depending on a clarification being made within the minutes, the last set of minutes. So it's up to you.
Yep. Are committee members happy with that? Yep. Can I see a show of hands for that? Just to make sure that. So Eleanor, Maddie, Kim, lovely. Okay. Thank you. Yes, thank you. So let's move. So we'll agree the minutes apart from clarification on that point, and let's move on. Thank you so much for your contributions. So agenda item 3, apologies, please.
Okay, so I've had apologies from Councillor Colin Brown, Andrew Coleman, Benningham and Mike Howe.
Thank you. So agenda item 4 is declarations of interest, which will be done by roll call.
Okay, so I shall start with Councillor Bloxham.
None, thank you.
And Councillor Chapman.
Exmouth Town Councillor.
Okay, and Councillor Davey.
Exmouth Town Councillor.
Thank you. Councillor Ranger.
None, thank you.
Councillor Rylance.
Broadcliffe Parish Councillor. And a frequent user of the Broadcliffe Village car park.
Thank you. I'm not sure they've got Councillor Wibley in. I don't think so. No. Okay, that's everything. Thank you.
Thank you. So agenda item 5 then is matters of urgency, and there are none. Agenda item 6 is confidential or exempt items. So there are no confidential or exempt items which officers recommend should be dealt with in this way. So on to agenda item 7 then, topics for discussion. So there are a number of topics for discussion on the agenda, which are the outstanding strategy issues following previous discussion about the TaFF's terms of reference. There are discussion papers on most of these items for today's meeting, which follow on from the previous meeting held on the 2nd of February. So I'd like to move us on to the first topic, which is agenda item 7A, the EDDC Climate Emergency Declaration and Action Plan, and the role of our car parking strategy in tackling this, with specific reference to investment in electric vehicle charging infrastructure and appropriate charging tariffs. So I think now we're going to hear from Mr. Andrew Dennis, Service Lead on Environmental Health and Car Parks. So Andrew, if you could introduce your discussion paper, please.
Of course, thank you, Councillor Ranger. This is quite a nice one for me. I get to put my environmental health officer's hat on as well as just managing car parks. So it is an area I'm perhaps more passionate about. From where I sit, I think it's clear that our priority of providing plentiful, affordable car parking in our towns that encourage motorists to drive into town, to spend time and money in our town centre businesses, is based on sound research. It's what the Chambers of Commerce want. It's what the British Parking Association tell us visitors to towns want. They want to be confident they'll find a car parking space close to their destination. However, I think it's also becoming clear to the public sector and to this council for sure that we have a climate emergency in the world. We have to deal with it. And we have committed to an action plan so that East Devon District Council plays its part. And we seek to reduce our own carbon footprint, the carbon footprint of our activities, which I would suggest to the TaFF must, by definition, really include our strategy for managing these sort of 60 car parking plots of land across East Devon. I fear that certainly at some level, these two priorities might be in conflict. There's certainly a bigger debate to be had about the whole use of private vehicles for personal transport. Where's public transport now in all of that? Have we all got access to decent public transport in this area? I'd suggest not at the moment. And there's a national policy question over that as well, for sure. But I think within that, there's still an opportunity for East Devon District Council to begin to do something. And I think that something is probably focusing in on our current car parking provision, and perhaps trying to do something that either encourages or enables or even nudges our residents and perhaps our visitors to believe that they can now make a change from a diesel or petrol vehicle to an electric vehicle as their main vehicle. And I think alongside that, we may decide there are opportunities to tweak our tariffs, to decide, are they currently encouraging the behaviours we want to encourage, or are they still saying basically you can drive any vehicle you like and you can park it here for no extra charge? There are possibilities, and I don't put it any stronger than that at this stage, to think about differential charging. The simplest would be, do we offer, say, free parking for electric vehicles whilst they're on charge, rather than charging them for their parking? Clear nudge towards the benefits of having an electric vehicle. It is possible, also we're told by the industry, to start having differential charges according to each vehicle's carbon dioxide emission rate. That data is largely held now by DVLA, so it could be done by the vehicle's registration number. It would require an investment in technology, but it is a direction we could investigate moving towards if we felt that was valuable at this stage. I think the timing of all of these measures is critical, and I think it's important to this stage we ask members for their overall views on a direction of travel, perhaps rather than any specific decisions on specific sites. Although there are a couple of ideas I do want to put to the TaFF in a few minutes, which might be ones where we decide we are ready to go, but I'll explain that shortly. The public speaker we heard earlier, I think it was Liza McLean, made two really helpful points, and one is that you don't necessarily need to invest loads of money up front in electric vehicle charging infrastructure now. The industry is up and running. They recognise that in the medium to long term there's money to be made, so they are doing deals with local authorities up and down the country, renting parking spaces for relatively small amounts of money, and their business plan is they're going to make money by charging for electricity as the price goes up, as demand goes up over the next 10 or 20 years. So that model does exist. We don't need to invest per se. She also made the point that if we do want to invest council funds, then surely we should get a return on that. Absolutely, that is also correct. So both of those points have been really clearly focused in my mind. I also made the point that in terms of investment, to get what we want, where we want it, might require us to invest, because the industry doesn't necessarily want to invest in the specific locations where where we want to provide car parking infrastructure. So again, I'll come back to that in a couple of minutes. But those points were both helpful and I think well made. So if I can come on now to some specific comments on where I think we are with electric vehicle charging infrastructure, and then perhaps build on to where I think we could go next. So over the last 3 years now, East Devon District Council has been working in a collaboration with other district councils in Devon and led by Devon County Council. And the objective of that collaboration has been to deliver an appropriate and consistent infrastructure across the region to enable, to underpin and encourage the use of both electric and plug-in hybrid vehicles throughout the region, not only to support residents and businesses, but also to encourage visitors who've got these vehicles to believe that they can visit the region and have the confidence that they'll be able to use their electric vehicle whilst they're here on their holiday. Frankly, we found some of that decision-making really difficult, and throughout that period there has been a developing and fast-moving landscape within the products available and the services available and the public sector subsidies available for this work, both within the UK and previously from the EU. So what we've actually got up and running in East Devon District car parks to date is frankly nothing. We haven't got anything in the ground, but we're almost there on phase 1. So what's been commissioned to date is 2 parking bays in each of Exmouth, Honiton, Sidmouth and Seaton. These 2 bays will be served in each case by a fast charging unit that is being delivered by a contractor that I can't announce who that contractor is today. In fact, I don't know, but the consortium that has commissioned it is in the standstill period, but I'm assured they have now selected a contractor to deliver and install and operate the units across the region. And as I said, the East Devon bit of that is these 8 units, which you should see in the ground hopefully early summer, but I'll confirm that as soon as I've got an actual timetable for each separate unit being installed. The majority of funding for this project has come from the European Regional Development Fund. Obviously that funding no longer exists. Council contribution to this project, at this stage, we had to put money in. We couldn't get the types of charges we wanted at the locations we wanted without any contribution, but we've committed £16,000 in total from existing budgets to make this phase 1 happen. The exact detail is subject to work now with the successful contractor, and our legal and property services teams are working with us to make sure we get a deal that makes sense. There will be a financial return on the sale of electricity, and as of today I can't tell you what that will be. I think the industry itself probably can't tell you exactly what that will be, but we expect it to start low and to grow over the 10-year period we're proposing that this arrangement is in place. So hot on the heels of this one is, again, relating back to the residential charge funding, which again Liza mentioned earlier. The Diletti phase 2 project, which is in, I'm not sure if we've circulated all of the briefing notes, Chair, but the phase 2 project that we're in collaboration with the County Council and other districts on is funded by the On Street Residential Charge Grant Fund. This has not moved on as far as phase 1 yet. We have proposed, and again this is at officer level, and based on what we feel we want, and also a number of suppliers have had a look at East Devon and suggested where appropriate charge point infrastructure might be helpful. And at the moment in the phase 2 bid, we've got the car parks as follows. That's the green outside the Victory Hall in Broadclyst, the small Brook Street car park in Ottery St Mary, and lower station car park in Budley Salterton. They're not set in a tablet of stone, and there was an opportunity for debate today on which sites ought to be going forward in phase 2. That bid isn't yet finalised, but it's looking at the moment like there won't need to be an upfront council contribution. The confidence in the market, I think, is improving, and suppliers now are confident that the investment up front will be paid back for them by the sale of electricity during the life of the contract with local authorities. So there'll be both a financial payback to the council and no upfront contribution from the council. So potentially we're now entering a phase where it really looks like win-win, and we can do something really very good over the coming years with how we roll out this infrastructure. The third one I wanted to bring up is actually quite an interesting one. It's a project that was originally running on solely in the city of Exeter. Again, it was linked to residential charge points, but on street, and it was funded by Innovate UK. Energy supplier Gamma Energy has successfully won the funding to roll out actually quite a substantial network of charge points, 150 in total. And the original plan, I think, was to deploy these within the city of Exeter, so East Devon didn't get a look in. I think the deployment perhaps has been a little slower, and they've reviewed their project parameters. And in the last few weeks, we've been invited to pitch in some of East Devon's towns on the basis that they are commuter towns, that there is a need to participate in this project. But the constraint on this one is it's a project that's already been procured, it's up and running, and we've got to be fairly quick about it if we want to do this. I've had a couple of preliminary meetings with the supplier, with colleagues at the county council, and with the council's legal and property teams, and we're quite excited, I think, is to put it down to a nutshell. It looks like a really good deal for our residents. It gets us in the game in a fairly substantial way, probably 20 sites in East Devon, which gives us charging for additional 40 vehicles at any given time. If we look at the overall car park portfolio, we've got just over 5,000 car parking spaces. So to commit, probably around no more than, well, not even 10% at this stage, just as a small percentage of those spaces given over to electric vehicle charging seems to me to be a reasonable move on our part. I was going to say gamble. I don't think it's a gamble. I think it's a more robust rationale than that. I, by my nature, dislike being rushed into things. I like to debate the issues and look at the options and work through them really carefully. And that's what we've been doing now for the last 3 years with the collaboration. And progress has been slow. And I think we need to at least look at the option of accelerating that. And I think this current Gamma Energy arrangement is exciting. It effectively puts up to 40 of our car parking spaces onto 15-year leases with this supplier, with the council getting something like a 3% share in the electricity revenue over that period. So there'll be a couple of issues for us to think about, and one of those is the fact that we'd be leasing out our interest effectively in some premium car parking spaces for a 15-year period, on the basis we expect to earn revenue from electricity sales, but we don't know for sure. The sites that are of interest to this project, I can list for you. In Exmouth, we're interested in putting 5 charge units serving 10 bays in the Imperial Road car park in front of the leisure centre. We'd also like to put a couple of chargers into the Town Hall car park serving the town centre, which would be serving 4 charging bays. Lympston seems to work well because of its location as a visitor destination and perhaps commuter town for Exeter. And we think there's a good opportunity there to serve another 4 bays for charging in Lympston. We think we can get another 8 bays into Sidmouth, and we're also quite excited about doing something in either Beer or possibly Budley Salterton and Honiton. I think Honiton works well as well. So hopefully that gives you a flavour that officers have been beavering away at this project for several years, and we've made some progress. On top of that, we've now got an unexpected opportunity where we can accelerate things quite significantly if members want us to go through that process. So in terms of where we go from this, what I was thinking was we would like the TaFF to think about whether you're happy with where we are with the phase 1 and phase 2 work, and if you are, to endorse us going forward and proceeding with that. If you are minded to recommend we go ahead with the Innovate UK funded charge points, and that would be up to 20 charge units in the car parks I've just mentioned. That will need us to be pretty fleet of foot, and I think I'd need to go straight back now to Cabinet as a matter of urgency with a report asking for authority to proceed and to participate in this programme. So I think that's probably where I wanted to get to at the moment, Chair, if that helps.
That is really helpful. Thank you so much. And thank you for the report that you sent through as well prior to this meeting, which has been really, really helpful. Thank you. So I noticed that there's quite a few hands up at the moment. So first of all, I'm going to ask non-members to speak. And the first person in that category is Councillor Jeff Young. Please.
Thank you, Chair. I've been taking a big interest in this. I used to work as an electrician for some time, so I know how much it costs to fit these units. It's not simply just putting a little cable in. There's a lot of work involved. I think the public speaker at the start of the meeting was making the point that normal car park users should not be supplemented the charge points for electric car charge points, which I tend to agree with. Now, why should people who can't afford an electric car contribute to the funds to provide electric points for the people who have got electric cars? I noticed, I think I'm right in saying that we're spending £16,000 on phase 1, and I know that is a small proportion of how much it would cost to fit these units, and by the feel of it, Andrew is saying that we should be able to get money back from that over a number of years. The phase 2, I don't think there's any costs involved. In phase 3, there's not much costs to East Devon. So overall, now £16,000 is a small amount of money, but it's still money. That money will come back in time, hopefully, but I don't think that I don't think that we as ratepayers or car park users should be contributing to the benefit of electric car users. But saying that, there are benefits for our tourist economy and for our shoppers to have charge points. So there has to be a balance there. Now, who are the people that are going to be using these electric car points? I was discussing this with various parish councillors throughout the area, and one point did come over is that there are locations such as Lympstone and parts of Sidmouth and other ancient towns where residents are unable to park outside their house and they have to use car parks, and it is possibly those people that we should be concentrating our efforts on to make sure that when electric cars become the norm, that they have got facilities for charging up their cars, which they will be parking in our car parks. I'll leave it for there. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next non-committee member is Councillor Haywood.
Thank you, Chair. Hello, lovely to be here with everyone, listening in intently. Following on from Councillor Young was saying, I circulated to members of the administration, and you'll be aware, a report following my discussion with Councillor Ray Stanley of Mid Devon District Council. Now, on this, I thank Councillor Rylance, Councillor Rickson, and Councillor Bickley and Councillor Jackson, who's not here today, for pointing me in that direction in my portfolio role. I sort of encouraged also by the Southwest EV Owners Group, who pointed out the dearth of charging facilities in East Devon. Effectively, it's just a desert. I've got the Zap map in front of me here, and they're not wrong. I mean, it really is. I mean, you can drive almost from Axminster to Exeter and barely find one. And if you do, it's not always working. Ray Stanley very kindly gave up a great deal of his time for me to chat to him and explained how Devon had entered into a commercial relationship with a well-known supplier. What he did say is, one, it cost Mid Devon nothing. They just did it. Yes, they had to lease spaces, but they are looking forward that effectively, yes, you're giving up a parking space or two or whatever you decide to do, but effectively you're looking forward to a period when there might not be the cars to fill them. And members will recall from a previous meeting when I made a similar comment, and a member of this council took me to task and said, oh, you said there's not going to be cars. Well, of course I didn't say that. What I said is the future of car use is going to change. So therefore, do we need in a car park of 100 spaces, 100 or 99 spaces for petrol cars? Probably not. There will be a change, a sea change in how we transport ourselves around. So let's be in at the ground floor on that process. What Mr. Stanley did say, and this comes back to something Andrew mentioned, is that the commercial contractors or relationships, they are just that. And these people negotiate hard, very hard. Mid Devon actually ripped up the contract that was put before them and rewrote it with their own legal expertise to make it work for Mid Devon. They didn't accept what they were told. They didn't accept a derisory figure. They fought hard, they pushed back. And in fact, one of the companies who offered it wouldn't play ball. So they said, fine, see you later. We'll just go to another one. And they went to another one and got a better deal. And that's the commercial world we live in. Everyone here in this room who's worked in the private sector knows that there's at least 3 or 4 stages to any negotiation. The first 3 of which are no, going to negotiate better. You know, I say the Cranbrook example is a classic point. You go back, you negotiate hard. That's the modern world, and that's how you get value for money. And we as a council have to deliver value for money. And if that means hard negotiating, that's what we'll do. But in essence, taking Mid Devon's point, they now have a wide range of charges in council facilities that encourage people to come there. They're in places where people can then go on a 45-minute perambulation around the town. They buy coffee, they buy groceries, they shop in local shops. They also discover towns that they've never been to before, and hopefully they go away saying, oh, Seaton, Axminster, Honiton, Ottery are lovely, you really must go there. And that's part of tourism. You know, Nick Hookway is here now. Nick is, you know, is the new portfolio holder for that. This is right up his street, because this is how we develop East Devon as a tourist location. It's just one of the strings, you know, to our bow. We must move forward on this. You know, we've missed the opportunity till now. Other people have been doing this. So let's get in now. Let's do it. Let's do it with some force, and do it with some passion, and do it like we mean it. I think the time for deliberation and prevarication is just gone. Let's just do it. And if we have to give up spaces in each car park, and yesterday I had a meeting with two fairly, you know, I don't know, embarrass them, big players in Axminster. And this was one of their pitches to me, is that by converting spaces in Axminster, their figure was that you could bring in an extra £3.2 million into the Axminster economy. Now, all those who know Axminster, you know it's probably the smallest town amongst all the others in East Devon. So if the bringing in of car charging can add 3.2 million to our economy, imagine what it could do for Exmouth. Imagine what it could do for Sidmouth and Seaton and Honiton and Ottery and Cranbrook. So let's do it. Let's do it, but let's not accept the first offer we're given as if we're grateful for them, you know, giving us the time of day. We're a local authority with clout. We have legal expertise. We have expertise in officers who know what they're talking about. Let's push hard and negotiate hard, get the best deal for visitors, for our residents, and people who are using this technology, because it's not going to go away. I know other technology is out there, but the government is committed to phasing out fossil fuel cars. So why would we hang on to that dogma of providing spaces for fossil fuel cars when we know they're going to be phased out? It's madness. Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I've taken up enough of your time. Thank you, members.
Thank you so much. So the next non-committee member is Councillor Kay Gill, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, what I would like to say is a couple of things, and I'm going to actually bring your attention to an article in a Scottish newspaper, the Press and Journal, using Aberdeen as an example. Dozens of electric vehicle charge points could be installed in Aberdeen over the next 5 years at a cost of £675,000. And they reckon that that bill will increase sixfold by 2030 if the local authority pushes ahead with its green plans. And they then say efforts to keep pace with the rising demand for electric vehicle infrastructure will cost Aberdeen at least £4.15 million by then. So this is not a cheap product, and already we're seeing in other parts of the country and other areas of the United Kingdom, the charges for electric vehicle charging point and infrastructure is a lot of money. I mean, it's an immense amount of money, yet already we're just only investing £16,000. It's a very small investment, and obviously for a very small return, because we're only going to have 14 bays in Exmouth, as Andrew Ennis intimated, and he also used the wording another 8 bays in Sidmouth. Well, how many bays are already in Sidmouth, I would ask, because I don't think we've got any in Exmouth, have we? Correct me if I'm wrong. The other point I'd like to make is surely our local authority should be doing more, working with Devon County Council to talk to the people who have the private public transport infrastructure, like Stagecoach, and the railways to do a lot more to bring in electric buses, because already we see in Exmouth, just to use the parade as an example, 5 buses sat on Exmouth Parade, all pumping out diesel fumes out of their diesel engines. Sat in Roll Street, another 2 or 3 double-deckers pumping out diesel fumes. So it's hardly, you know, moving forward, we're trying to get the target against the emergency, when we're just allowing the public service providers to just carry on pumping out fumes into the atmosphere. Yet we're trying to put in electric vehicle charging points at a cost of £16,000. So I think we really need to sort of look at this in a little bit more detail as to how much we actually want to invest as a local authority and work with other authorities in Devon to actually get a bigger investment to provide electric vehicle charging points, so people can invest in buying electric vehicle to use for their commuting. So, you know, I just wanted to throw those points out there. I know Aberdeen is a very big oil city, but that's not the principle. They're still a council and they've still got to pay money. Thank you.
Thank you. So our next non-committee member is Councillor Marianne Rickson.
Thank you, Chair. With regard to Councillor Kay Gill's comments about the dearth of charging points, I think he is right, because I'm looking at the ZAP map, and whereas Sidmouth has got well, about 3 or 4 hotels which are offering a limited number of charges, we've also got the Donkey Sanctuary and Hamilton Garage. I could only find for Exmouth Tesco Superstore. There doesn't seem to be anything else, although I may, of course, be wrong about this. But regardless of that, I mean, this just points the way to the fact that we need to get on with it. And we really, as Councillor Haywood pointed out, he referred to stopping for coffee. Well, in the industry, because I used to work for the National Trust, we refer to them as T&P stops. So this is exactly what you need, so that people stop to have coffee, cake, or whatever, and go shopping while they're having their car charged, which would obviously be a benefit to us. As we've got a numerous amount of bed and breakfasts in this area, we need to be able to have a facility to enable them. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to, they won't travel here with confidence if they can go somewhere else and be sure that they can stop and get their cars charged. I'm very pleased to see that this project is progressing. I think this is clearly needed, and we do actually need, I think, as someone else has commented, we need to get on with it. With regard to electric buses, which is what Councillor Kay Gill mentioned earlier, I'd just like to point out that Leeds and other places are trialling hydrogen buses. And of course, it's a lot easier to refill with hydrogen, a quick fill, just as you would with gas or whatever, rather than what do you do when you've got a bus that's perhaps stalled going up 4 Elms Hill? I don't know what they would do with it if they've run out of juice. I would also just like to mention that this may not be for us, but presumably Devon County Council might be investigating this. In London, where parking is not possible in car parks, where there is some parking on streets, they've actually converted lamp posts. So there is charging possible there as well, but that must be a longer term suggestion. And finally, with regard to changing behaviour and enabling people to change their attitude towards getting away from fossil fuels, in terms of health and well-being, we obviously would like to encourage more people to walk and to cycle. So maybe much longer term, we would need to do something about charging facilities for e-bikes, because yet again, if you're going up steep hills like 4 Elms Hill or Salcombe Hill in Sidmouth, what do you do when you've run out of juice halfway up? So I think we also may need to consider that as well.
Thank you. Thank you. So I don't see any more non-committee members wishing to speak. So I've got 4 committee members wishing to speak. I'll just let you know your running order, just so you can be prepared. So I'm going to call Councillor Chapman, then Councillor Rylance, Councillor Davey, and then Councillor Bloxham. That's the order that I've seen the hands appear. So Councillor Maddie Chapman, would you like to go ahead?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I have 2 questions. I don't know if Andrew Ennis can answer them. And yes, I know we all have to do something for climate change, and we really need to crack on. What is worrying me is, yes, we can start this off with electric charging, but if you look around Exmouth or anywhere else, look at all the cars and everything, how is the national grid going to cope with this? And it's a case of supply and demand. So charging is going to go through the roof. Bearing in mind, we are in an area of low wages, basically tourists. Like Councillor Kay Gill says, the infrastructure of, the trains, the buses, that needs to be stepped up. So although I'm quite happy to start off small and see how it goes, I think that could be a problem, generating enough electricity for the whole country, which is what we're trying to do. Getting rid of fossil fuels. Now, I am aware, and I'm sorry, I got this from my son. There is a lot of research going on into different types of fuel, which perhaps, when we went from petrol to unleaded, they put converters on the cars that people had already got. And so they're looking at all sorts of adapting cars to non-fossil cars. And I don't know if Andrew Ennis has any background knowledge on how that is going and what they are doing. I understand we need to do something, but in an area which is mainly tourists, yes, we can put electric car parking charges in for the people that have electric cars now. But as I say, long term, I'm a bit worried how this is going to go with National Grid. And are we going to then see lots of nuclear power plants? Because I don't think I'd be terribly happy about that. So I have lots of reservations long term. Short term, yes, it's fine to sort of jump in there and support. But I think we need to keep a sharp eye on the research on what is going on, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. So can I just check in now with Andrew Ennis? I'm not sure. I know some of the electric charging points are sort of solar powered. Can you just answer that question for us?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good point that Councillor Chapman makes. There isn't a thing nationally. There's a recognition, I think, that we are going to be using an awful lot more electricity as we go through our transition from fossil fuels to alternatives. So electricity consumption in the UK is probably going to double. So there's a whole load of challenges there for us nationally about how we balance that out. So, for example, photovoltaic cells to generate power are going to be really important. They're not going to be the whole picture, but for example, the project I'm talking about now with Gamma Energy, they actually install a battery with every charge unit. So the batteries are charging up, so that it helps to flatten the peak demand. So if you turn up to charge your vehicle, you're not pulling 50 kilowatts straight out of the national grid on a three-phase supply. You're using this energy that's been stored more slowly in the battery. And Gamma Energy, again, sorry, I'm just looking for my figures so I can read it back to you. Please forgive me, I've got too many things open Here we are. Gamma Energy already manage one of the big solar parks up near Columpton, just near the motorway. That produces 5 gigawatt hours of electricity in a year. And their claim is that's the equivalent to charging up 1,500 electric vehicles in a year. So it might not be actually at the point where you charge the vehicle, but there's this kind of balance that goes on about trying to generate enough renewables, trying to build storage of electricity into the system. You know, and we could go on. I mean, there is discussion about your home and whether your home itself becomes a store unit. Your actual vehicle itself might become part of the storage solution. So if you're not using your vehicle, the vehicle battery can help flatten the demand and power parts of your home. At other times, your vehicle's on charge, ready for you to use. And on site at home, you will, at some stage in the future, I would suggest, have your own solar power generation in most cases and battery storage. So the way we consume electricity is going to change, but I think we are inevitably going to consume more of it as we go through this transition from fossil fuel to something else. It may lead to hydrogen fuel cells. We're hearing stuff emerging. We mentioned the buses in Leeds already. There are inherent issues with that and possible dangers and logistics, but again, from my environmental background, I think that probably is the long-term solution, but I think we're looking at 10, 15 years of reliance on electrical charging. If we get that, is my kind of take on it. That's where I think we are. We do what we can, and we will be looking at other projects that are probably not aligned to car parking as part of our climate emergency response. So I'm not trying to cover all the opportunities we might have through our own photovoltaic generation and storage. There will be many other projects coming forward. We're also talking about electric bike charging. You're quite right, Councillor Rixon. We've got also discussions ongoing with electric car clubs. We've been working with co-cars and with Councillor Davey. I see he's going to speak in a minute, so he may mention that. So all of these things start to align to our overall response to the emergency. But I was trying to focus specifically on what the car parks portfolio might do today.
Thank you very much. Councillor Eleanor Rylance, please.
Did you just call me, Chair?
Yes.
Sorry, my internet dropped out for a second there. I'm going to have to stay off camera because my internet's really dodgy today. Right. A lot of you.
Oh, you've just dropped out.
More of a passion. Can you hear me?
You just dropped out for a second. Try again.
I was just saying this is actually a big passion of mine, and I think Andrew Ennis is probably aware of that as well because I've been bugging him enough about it over the last few years. I go to a lot of meetings at District Council, and in a lot of these meetings, we're talking about business recovery, we're talking about the survival of town centres, we're talking about business rates. If you were going to sit down and design a method for bringing people into town centres, you could not think of anything better than to actually offer them electric car chargers. Located very conveniently for going to get fish and chips or go around the town, because when you've got your car on charge, you have to stay for a while. So what we're talking about here, I think people are looking at it from the wrong point of view. They're looking at it as a service we're providing to electric car owners. And you know, full disclosure, I own an electric vehicle. But actually, what we should be looking at is as a method of regenerating town centres and actually attracting people into town centres and causing them to pause for a while. There's a very good reason why a lot of the rapid car chargers that are currently available across the country are installed at the back end of pub car parks and restaurants. It's because the restaurants and the car park and the pubs understand that if you have an electric car charger at the back of your pub, people are more likely to come, and they're more likely to come into your pub and have a meal while they're there. So, you know, there is a lot of symbiosis here between our desire to keep our town centres alive and see them prosper, and to attract tourism into the centre of our towns, allow people to discover places they wouldn't necessarily know about. So I think we need to stop looking at this as, you know, a Tesla owner's garden, because there's a huge range of specs of electric vehicle available now, and not all of them are very expensive. And I would remind Councillor Young that we won't be able to buy a new conventional engine car in less than 9 years' time. They will no longer be available to purchase. So we have to start thinking ahead. We cannot wait until 2029 to start doing this. We've got to start doing it now. It's not a rich person's thing. It's everybody's going to have to switch away from conventional engines. So that's my first major observation. I have a lot of technical questions for Andrew. I'm not sure whether I mean, it's worth airing them, I suppose, vaguely in this forum. And one of them is the chargers that we're installing in Deletti phase 1. Can they charge 2 cars at once? Because some of those chargers can only charge 1 car at once. So that's worth finding out from manufacturers. In terms of managing flows in car parks, this is yet another way that we can use to help manage the flows in our short stay car parks. Because people who come to charge their car, they're either going to want to stay for half an hour or to 40 minutes, the time it takes to charge their car, in which case, you know, being very close to town centre car parks would be ideal, or they're going to want to stay for a couple of hours if they want to go to the cinema, for example, or, you know, go for a walk at the beach. And you can cut your cloth according to the type of car park that you have. I mean, it's an ideal situation really in terms of flow management. We have to accept that more and more people are buying electric vehicles. Electric vehicles in the last year, more people have bought an electric vehicle than have bought a diesel vehicle in the last year. So month on month, the sales of electric vehicles are going up and up. And unless we have the infrastructure to cope with this, we are going to miss out on a huge amount of visits and tourism. Going back to the the parking charging for residents, yes, okay, most people will charge at home. If you don't have the facilities to charge at home, then we need to offer trickle chargers in the places where people park their cars. That's what we need to be looking at. So the car parks, if people have a yearly pass for one of the car parks, then that's the sort of place where you put a trickle charger. There is a difference between fast and rapid. The wattage, so the output of a charger is not the speed at which the car will necessarily charge. A rapid charger is chiefly aimed at people who are on long trips. So you want to charge and go, but charge and go with an electric car means 30 to 40 minutes minimum. It's enough time to get a sandwich and a coffee and have a quick wander around. Fast chargers, such as we're installing, if you want to go from naught charge to nearly fully charged, that's about 4 or 5 hours. So we need to bear that in mind when we're planning where to put various types of charger. If we're talking about chargers offered to residents, then a 7 kilowatt or even less, even a 3-phase, is enough because people will be parked there for many, many hours. So we can actually use this as part of our flow management through car parks. You couldn't think of anything better actually, because the people offering chargers tend to have a cutoff point of 30 or 40 minutes, after which they either start charging or the charger stops working. Another thing I would say is that people don't generally want to charge up on rapid chargers all the time because it actually does grill your batteries faster. So these are, if you're talking about rapid charging, it's charge and go, and it's people who tend to be on longer journeys. Because if you're near your house, you tend to charge at home or in a much slower charger, at a much slower charger. So we need to consider who we're trying to reach with rapid chargers and with the much faster charging. Blah 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 blah. Okay, yeah. So my final remark really is about bearing in mind that conventional engines are being phased out in 9 years' time. We won't be able to buy a conventional engine car anymore. We need to be planning ahead. We cannot wait to start installing this infrastructure because we need to start presenting East Devon as an attractive place to people who are coming from far away in non-conventional engine cars. And increasingly, a lot of Londoners are buying electric cars because they don't have to pay the congestion charge. And so if we want to attract tourism to our area, we absolutely need to be investing in this charging infrastructure, but we need to consider very carefully which type of charger we put in which places and who it's aimed at. And my final point is about double charging. Very, very unpopular with the electric car community. None of us at the moment with our conventional cars are charged to go into a petrol station. Yet some local authorities are charging people for the electricity and for the parking while they're there. I mean, you don't have a choice but to park at an electric car charger. You have to be there for a certain length of time. It is iniquitous, in my view, to be charging people for parking when they're actually there for charging. It would be far better to take a sort of more holistic view on this and consider that while people are there charging their car, they're also out probably buying a sandwich or a coffee and, you know, making use of the local facilities and having a look round. And yeah, as Councillor Haywood said earlier, having a look round and seeing what they like and possibly coming back at a later date. We're at a very interesting time with electric car sales and developing the infrastructure. And I really fear that unless we go for it now, we are going to actually miss the boat, and we are going to fail to pick up on something which could really help our local economy. And lastly, to pick up on what Councillor Kay Gill and Councillor Chapman said, offshore wind, onshore wind, all sorts of other kinds of generation do exist and have at some points in the last couple of years actually outstripped nuclear power, and in fact produced the bulk of the power in this country at some points in this country in the last couple of years. To go back to one point Councillor Kay Gill made about diesel, I think it's a pretty specious argument against electric cars that we can't stop buses idling, diesel buses. Why do we not press government to outlaw idling generally? Outside schools, buses, any kind of, nobody should be idling. You know, it's not like if you have to crank it up with a hand crank anymore. You know, but buses, HGVs, nobody should be idling in their conventional car. It's that simple. We should be campaigning for that at national level. Thank you. I think that's pretty much all I had to say. But I do want to know about the whether you can charge 2 cars at once on these charges, please.
So, Andrew, could you just respond to that?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. As you say, passion of yours and mine. Interesting points you raised. So the simple answer is yes. The phase 1 Diletti charge units will charge 2 vehicles simultaneously. They are fast ones, as you said. They're rated at 22 kilowatts, but a lot of cars, as you know, will only take a charge at 7 kilowatts anyway. So they will happily deliver that charge at the slower rate. So it may well take the older generation electric vehicles that period of several hours to charge anyway using those units, but they will charge two vehicles simultaneously. We are certainly looking at rapid charge units as well. The third project I talked about, the one where we've got a time constrained opportunity to take advantage of it, those rapid chargers will also be available to plug in your own lead to charge your vehicle at the slower rate if you've got that type of vehicle. So you don't have to use the cable provided. They've got the capability of delivering the 7 kilowatt trickle charge as well, which I know is important and is the way you would charge your vehicle if you're a resident. The phase 2 project, which is the residential charge point programme, the one where I've nominated the 3 car parks at the moment, but would welcome members' views on as to whether they're ones and whether we want to expand that. Again, they will be charge units that can deliver the fast charge, but they are equally quite happy delivering the 7 kilowatt charge if that's what your vehicle wants, so people can charge up more slowly.
Thank you very much. Oh, sorry.
There were a couple of other points. Do you want me to finish my list? I mean, the point you made about not being able to buy a new petrol or diesel vehicle is right, but the advice we're having locally is we've got to remember that a lot of our local vehicles are not brand new vehicles. I don't know how old your cars are. Mine are all more than 10 years old, you know, always. So the chances are we're going to have a significant number of petrol and diesel vehicles in the fleet rolling around East Devon for some years to come after the deadline for not being able to buy a brand new one. So we just have to bear that in mind, as well as encouraging, for all the reasons I said earlier, with the fact that we want to make it easy for visitors to visit the region, and we want to nudge people to make that decision when they buy their next vehicle to have the option of an electric vehicle, or at least a plug-in hybrid. And as I think I said earlier, I would welcome members' views on whether we should do the double charging. I think you referred to it as we have an option. It's a clear nudge with electric vehicles. We can decide as part of our tariff there is no charge if you're charging your vehicle with electricity at the time. You know, that is an option that we have. Oh, sorry, and finally, yes, a campaign for ending idling. Yeah, I think it's already illegal if you happen to be in an air quality management area, but for the rest of us, no. Again, I think I would support that if members wanted to write to government on that point.
Thank you. So next is Councillor Ollie Davey. Councillor Davey, you were holding something up to the screen earlier, but I couldn't see what it was. So perhaps you could elaborate now. Thank you.
I shall do. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I want to correct a few misapprehensions. I firstly want to speak about Liza McLean, our first contributor today. She suggested that the increase in car park charges was to pay for the installation of the electric car charging infrastructure. I don't think that's actually the case. The reason that we agreed to raise the car parking charges was because they hadn't been touched for 10 years, because the council is facing a shortfall in income. And I think Andrew did suggest in his report this might also give us the confidence to invest in electric charging. But the two were not directly linked. And I don't know if that's been picked up by the press. I think also our second speaker had read the Devon Live article, which did contain a number of rather misleading assertions. So I don't think that there's a direct connection between the installation of electric charging and the increase in car parking charges. Andrew's talked about free parking for electric vehicles. I totally agree that they shouldn't have to pay when they're actually occupying a bay, so long as there is some encouragement to drivers not to leave their cars in the charging bay once it's charged. I think you've got to have some method of ensuring that they don't overstay there, because there could well be other people waiting to use it. Councillor Chapman made a couple of interesting points. One is whether there is actually enough capacity in the network to actually sustain all these electric vehicles. So I've actually been asked this one before, and if you look at the National Grid website, not some sort of green company, but the National Grid, they assert that there is enough capacity in the National Grid for the number of anticipated electric vehicles, and it goes on to lay out quite a lot of reasons why that is so, and also why smart charging can help to even out some of that. Councillor Chapman also made a point about the changing technology and whether electric cars might actually turn out to be the Betamax of the future of personal transport. I think there's a number of reasons why not. I just happened to look up the history of electric cars this morning, and there's a fascinating article in Wikipedia about the history of electric vehicles. The first ones actually appeared in the mid-19th century. The mid-19th, not the mid-20th, the mid-19th century. And up until the end of the century, it was electric vehicles that held all the land speed and duration records as well. And at the turn of the 19th century into the 20th, in the United States, which was the biggest user of these, there were actually the number of cars on the road, about 20% were gasoline powered, petrol powered, and the remaining 80% was split between electric and, believe it or not, steam. So the electric vehicle has been around for a long time, and I think everybody's thinking, oh, this is the new thing now. They have a long history, but I think because of the availability of cheap petroleum and a number of other things, the electric car fell out of favour, and the internal combustion engine took over. But it could so easily have gone the other way. Andrew mentioned co-cars who we've both been in discussion with. I should declare an interest here. I am an investor in co-cars, very small one. The possibility of people, we've just approved a couple of applications in Exmouth at planning yesterday where there's no provision for parking. So people may need access to a car. And if we can get car clubs using electric cars to be able to use some of those bays, then those people who don't have any parking where they live will still have access to a car for those journeys that they need to make by car. The charging of e-bikes was mentioned, and I agree, but the range of most e-bikes is around 60 miles. And I think most people who are using an e-bike are probably not going to want to go much further than that, certainly in a single day before they get somewhere where they might be able to charge it up. Yes, the question of idling, which came up, in some places it is already illegal, apparently, and you can be fined for it. But apparently in 2019, Chris Grayling said that they would be strengthening the legislation on this, and I know a lot of councils have been pressing for that to be made illegal. It annoys me immensely seeing people sitting in their cars, leaving them, or sometimes even walking away and leaving the car idling. And I believe it should be illegal. I have a couple of questions for Andrew about the actual terms under which we're getting these charges. It says that obviously we're leasing them to the operator for a peppercorn rent, so that's okay. And the council takes a share of the electricity revenue, which is good. I just wondered what happens, is this in perpetuity, or is there a time limit on this? I noticed in the Deletti Phase 2, we're looking about 10-year leases, and I just wonder what happens after that. Does the ownership of the charger then revert to the council? Or do they come and take them away? Quite important that we know what the terms are there. But on the whole, I think this is incredibly exciting, and I want to congratulate Andrew on the work that he's obviously been doing to move this, I think, very important project forward. And Councillor Ryland's made some excellent points about it could be a way to stimulate our town centres and certainly attract visitors to the area and make it much more attractive for them to come here, knowing that they have plenty of car charging when they're moving around within the area.
Thank you. Andrew, do you want to come back on any of that? I think the Deletti Phase 2, the actual lease is for 15 years rather than 10 years. Is there anything that you want to mention?
So, yeah, thank you, Councillor. Yeah, the Deletti Phase 1 is a 10-year lease. The deal that we've negotiated is that the operator sets the whole thing up, including all the connections through to the grid, which requires a 3-phase connection. So that's quite an expensive bit. At the end of the project, the council, the landowner, owns all of the infrastructure that's in the ground up to the charge point, but the actual box and the customer delivery bit we don't own and don't want to own, and we would be seeking to negotiate, I'm guessing, a further term with either the present supplier or with the new supplier to plug into that grid connection at the end of that 10-year lease. So if it goes well, we might want to renew, or we might want to renegotiate or retender. But the infrastructure will be in the ground ready for us to use, and we would own that bit.
Thank you. So our last committee member to speak that I can see at the moment is Councillor Kim Bloxham, please.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd just like to declare a personal interest as a member of Cranbrook Town Council, and I've listened to all the comments this morning and I totally support them, and I think that the projects that Andrew's mentioned are extremely exciting and we should go ahead with them. But I really wanted to update you where we are on Cranbrook, because a number of the issues that mentioned this morning, Cranbrook has got some of those, some experiences. We did have a co-car. I understand that was taken away through lack of use, which was very disappointing. But on the positive side, the e-bikes that were introduced, we've had to provide more of them because so many have been used, which again, I think is a really good thing. Cranbrook Town Council last year leased its first electric vehicle for its Country Park Ranger to use. So again, another step forward. And whilst walking around Cranbrook, I do notice an increasing number of residents' homes where they've installed their home chargers. So we must have quite a variety of electric vehicles around. And only yesterday, in the one car park that we have in Cranbrook, the Town Council installed a charging point, which I think will please Councillor Rylance. I can see she's got a thumbs up. And you can charge 2 cars at once. As you know, previously, the Cranberry Farm pub was the only place in Cranbrook that had a point, but this was installed yesterday. Sadly, we did get one complaint from one of the retailers that it was a loss of a parking space, which of course we have tried to deal with, but I just thought it was an interesting one that was so topical that at the moment, only yesterday, that was installed. So I certainly support that this is a way forward. Thank you.
Thank you. So I noticed that there are a couple more hands up, but in fact they're non-committee members. So I think I think we need to actually, well, I have a few questions myself, first of all, for Andrew, and then I think we need to think about some recommendations. So just a couple of questions I've got. I think it's been mentioned before. Somebody mentioned about if people sort of hog the charging points and overstay their charge. I noticed that one other council, there was an additional, I think it was a £5 charge if you overstayed your charging time. So I don't know if we would want to think about anything like that in the terms and conditions. Another issue, I was looking actually at Dorset, and actually was in Lyme Regis. There was a great discontent in one of the car parks where the chargers were frequently not working, and there was quite a lot on their website, on the chat, about, oh, don't bother to go there and it just doesn't work. So I just wondered kind of what insurances we get built in about making sure that the company is responsible, you know, keep their equipment absolutely up to scratch. Those are my first 2 questions.
Okay, thank you.
Maintenance, yeah.
So thank you, Chair. Could I also just respond really briefly to Kim's point on the Cranbrook? Obviously, the District Council doesn't own any car parks, so it's not part of my proposal, but I do know that the County Council are in touch with the same Gamma energy supplier, talking about the on-street charging. And I think the kind of lamppost equivalent idea of a charge point on the street now is a reality. And not only are they talking about that in Exeter, they are also talking to the County Council about delivery of that in Cranbrook, but I'm not directly involved, but I thought that might be of interest. Yeah, in terms of how we police the use of charge points and the charge point parking bays in car parks, I would welcome members' views. The default one, I suppose, for us is we would say it's a contravention in the car park. So if you stay beyond your charging time, you can have a parking ticket, which is £25 if you pay it straight away, or £50 if you don't. So it's a standard parking ticket. You may want us to finesse that into some sort of excess charge instead, but that would be the simplest way I would suggest, is we'll have a bit of common sense and leeway. But if you persist in parking where you shouldn't, that's what you're doing. So there's already a remedy for that, which we can plug into the existing enforcement process, and you'll simply get a dreaded yellow bag on your window when you get back, which will make your charging experience significantly more expensive and hopefully will deter you from doing that. Yeah, I'm aware of the stuff in Lyme. I do go to Lyme often. I know there's dissatisfaction generally and nationally with non-working charge points. So again, I'd welcome the TaFF's view on this, but we think we're stronger working in the collaboration we're in with the County Council and the other districts. They've employed an officer who is full-time on the procurement of these solutions. He works with colleagues who know about this stuff, and we do place some reliance on that experience. So we're not dealing with companies who've got a bad reputation, and we are building into the contract service level agreements for response times to get things back up and running. So we're very aware of it and have it covered. And I would be slightly nervous at the moment about taking that initiative that's sort of quite rightly thrown down for us by our portfolio holder to say, you know, we can go out and aggressively negotiate, but it's about having the capacity and the skill sets in-house to do that. We might want to do that ourselves going forward, but at the moment I feel more comfortable doing that with the bigger team and the bigger buying power. And I think what we're getting, perhaps slightly more slowly, is a really good solution for our residents.
Thank you. Just to highlight one or two points that I think people have been concerned about, just looking through this, I'm just making the point, it's not really a question. I think one of the concerns is that will we have even spread right across our district of these car charging points? I think that's something that we need to be really careful about. I think it's a really good point that we're making about regenerating towns. Not double charging, it seems to be I don't know, we can talk about that in a minute. The flavour of, I think, so far of the discussions is that we shouldn't be double charging. If people are charging their cars, they shouldn't also be paying for parking. I think we need to be mindful after this meeting that we do, that there is perhaps a press release carefully outlining the discussions that we've had, just in case there are any misinformation being put out that we would like to see corrected about sort of other people subsidising this just for electric vehicle drivers. So Andrew, at the end of his report, he's put some recommendations in point 4 of his report to us. So would committee members please like to make recommendations now, or endorse those recommendations, or make any changes?
So, Councillor Ranger, can I make one more point? I hope
Yes,
it might be helpful. I probably didn't emphasise it enough, but your point about an even spread across the district is quite an important one, and is something I think might be quite hard to achieve, and is somewhere where we might need to think about upfront investments. The industry is quite clear about what they want, and I've outlined the areas where I think we've got interest. And again, I think Councillor Haywood sort of mentioned several towns over in the Axe Valley there where we haven't got much infrastructure, and frankly there doesn't seem to be too much interest at the moment in terms of attracting subsidies to get those things installed. Now I will take this up offline with Councillor Haywood as portfolio holder, because that sort of investment and return for Axminster is quite exciting. He mentioned figure of something, I can't remember the figure, was it 3.2 million contribution to the Axe Valley or the Axminster economy would result from installation of electric vehicle charging. So it's a really exciting prospect, but I've got no realistic kind of companies lining up wanting to do it for me at the moment. So it's how we make that happen. So I'd like a more even spread. I'm conscious it isn't even at the moment, and a steer from the TaFF as to whether they would be recommending an investment where that's necessary to make it happen or not would be helpful.
Okay, so members, do we have please any recommendations? Councillor Rylance, go ahead please.
Well, I'd like to recommend that the service lead forge ahead with investigating all the options, all the possible options, including fully funded ones, and possibly produce a report that could go to cabinet, because I'm conscious that we're in car park TaFF at the moment, but this is actually involving the portfolios of quite a large number of people, because it does touch into regeneration and business, businesses as well. So I think it could be more usefully discussed in a much more diverse group, really. I'm just wondering, I mean, obviously we can produce a report as a car parking TaFF, but I suspect that it might need the input of a number of other people as well. So I think it might best go to cabinet. I don't know what other people think. Really.
Would it be helpful if I read the recommendations in Andrew's report? So recommendation 1 is to note and endorse the ongoing work outlined above in Deleti phases 1 and, it says 1 and 1, but I think it's 1 and 2, Andrew, is that correct? And then secondly, to report to cabinet as a matter of urgency, seeking authority to participate in the Innovate UK funded Exeter rapid charging project to install and operate up to 20 rapid charging units in EDDC's public car parks this year. Is the committee happy to, the TaFF, car parking TaFF, I beg your pardon, happy to endorse those recommendations?
Yes, Chair.
Yeah, so can we put that to the vote, please? So all those in favour of those recommendations, can you raise your blue hands now? So I think that's unanimous.
Hang on, Chair, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, it is, Chair, correct.
Lovely, thank you. So we have no abstent. If you can lower your blue hands. So we have no abstentions and nobody voting against. Is there any more recommendations? Do we want to ask whether cabinet also look as an option at the possibility of providing either electric charging points, or maybe going off topic, but even Councillor Bloxham mentioned the renting out electric bikes. Is that anything that this committee would be interested in at least investigating? Do you want to raise your blue hands if you think that would be useful to investigate? Okay, so can we turn that into a recommendation then, that we recommend to cabinet that either electric bicycle charging points or a electric rental scheme could be looked at? Andrew, do you think that's a possibility that you would be happy with?
Personally and professionally, yes. I'm not sure it fits quite so well with the terms of reference of the car park TaFF, but I think it's a really good thing that we should be doing. So let's not be constrained by that at this stage. Yeah. Good
point. Let's not be constrained. Lovely. Thank you so much. So can I just put that to the vote, that we do put that recommendation forward, sorry, for the investigating electric bike. Oh, sorry, I'm just, I beg your pardon. I think there were blue hands going up that then disappeared. Okay.
Chair, sorry, I know in terms of refining what you're voting on, I mean, are you thinking about having the charge points within a car park? That then makes it relevant to the car park TaFF anyway.
Well, I have wondered whether, as part of the climate change emergency, that we were a little bit more helpful about providing somewhere for people to put their bicycles. I mean, I appreciate that in a safe place. I appreciate that then you might say, well, then we're losing a car parking space. But in terms of if we are linking this into the climate change emergency, yes, I think whether that's a possibility.
Well, if I think in station car parks, I mean, near stations.
Absolutely. And I think there is usually space within car parks where you're not taking up a whole car parking space, where you've got room for a small bike rack, for example. So I think it would be a positive way to go forward.
All right, lovely. Thank you so much for that. Yes, so we're happy with that recommendation going forward. I think there's full support for that. Councillor Davey, did you want to make another point?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I mean, I'm certainly in favour of pursuing the kind of co-bikes type of provision. I'm not totally convinced that there's a huge demand for electric cycle charging, but I don't have one, so I remain to be corrected on that by those who've got more knowledge of them. But generally, the range of them is such that you don't need a huge amount of provision for extra charging. And also, they don't require the same degree of infrastructure. I think most of them will just charge from a 13 amp power point. I don't know what the charging time is. Jeff can probably tell us because he's got one. But I wonder if, you know, even some cafes could provide charging for an electric bike unit, so that you could take the battery in and charge it up while you're having a coffee. But I don't know if that's actually realistic.
Yeah, Jeff, do you want to quickly respond to that?
Yeah, as I've got an electric bike, it does take about 4 hours to charge it up fully. Most bikes use the Bosch battery and motor, about 60%. And what I've done is, if I'm on a long journey, if I'm touring around and I'm going to be out for more than a day and staying the night at a B&B, then I take the charger with me. And when I have a cup of tea and a scone, I would go in with the battery and the charger. A lot of other bikes have different chargers. You only need a 13 amp socket. But last year we were looking at more e-bikes locations at Exeter and Honiton stations, and that was something that I was very interested in, and I'm glad to hear that the Cranbrook ones are oversubscribed. Now, the point with these electric bike points, you need more than one, so you can pick up one in one location and then cycle to a location, leave it, and then do your thing, and then pick up another bike and return. So e-bikes are very, very important, and I think they will become very popular. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Maddie Chapman, did you want to make another quick point?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, a number of car parks in Exmouth have got bike bays, but as well as electric, for the electric bikes, we also need extra for cyclists. And we were looking at this at one point down by the Wreck, and also more near Marks and Spencer's and the railway stations, with people cycling from Exeter to encourage them to be able to leave their bikes and go into town. We, you know, as you say, it should go to Cabinet, and also maybe the tourist portfolio holder could look at that for ordinary bikes as well, because we seem to be a bit short on that.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. So perhaps I think, is that going to be encompassed in our last recommendation? I think that Cabinet look at the role of providing parking for bikes and electric bikes. Okay, I'm just looking at the time. So I think if it's, unless there's any more recommendations to do with that item, I think we'll move on to item 7B. So we're just, we're about just shy of 20 minutes, under 2 hours now. So this next agenda item 7B, the use of cash and incentives to use alternative payment methods. So again, Andrew, if you could just introduce that. You've given us a paper in advance on that. Thank you so much. That was really helpful. So if you'd just like to introduce your paper. Thank you.
Chair, Yeah, apologies. I seem to have lost my video. So can you hear me okay? I think my internet's struggling.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I wanted to cover on this one, it came up in earlier discussions in the TaFF process. So I thought it's just worth having a moment's pause. Probably 10, 12 years ago when I first started looking at car parks, we were all cash and check. We weren't doing any card payments, or certainly not in any significant level, even with people buying permits. Revenue streams are shifting now. We have an awful lot of online payments, particularly for car park permits nowadays. We have a lot of money coming in through card payments in the car park pay machines particularly, and we've recently added the ability to pay by contactless card payment in all of our bigger, most popular car parks. We're also able to take payment by mobile phone in all of our car parks, and that was a slow start. Customers struggled to download the app. They really did struggle with it. But I just had a look back on the current financial year and the breakdown. Okay, it's not a normal year. I think there might be reasons why people are choosing contactless forms of paying for sure, but it's reassuring. So the proportion of cash has now reduced. So looking at the year to date, we've got £467,000 of income through online sources. We've got just under the million, 999,000 on cash. We've got over 500,000 now, 525,000 on card payments in car parks, and another 225,000 on mobile phone payments. So that's a real shift, I think, towards customers finding that alternative to cash to be acceptable, possibly even more convenient. Issues with cash for us operationally are that it costs a certain amount of money to send frankly a contractor in a secure van to collect cash and take it back and count it and then put it in the bank for us. That's a reducing amount, to be fair, because we're doing less cash, but it's still about £30,000 every year at the moment, just to physically take the cash and get it into a bank. We have sadly suffered both theft and attempted theft over the last couple of years. It's usually a fairly amateurish attempt to drill holes in the cash vault under the ticket machine. Often it doesn't actually result in getting any cash out, and typically there's only a few coins. There might be a few hundred, but there's certainly not going to be thousands of pounds in there. But you can be sure every time it happens, we've spent several £1,000s either repairing or in some cases replacing the damaged machine. So the fact there is cash there seems to be an issue which does attract attempted theft, sadly. On the other side, we did attempt probably 5 years ago now a cashless, cardless car park. We opened the new car park in Beer. We said, okay, you can only pay for this car parking using your mobile phone. People were using it, but not very much. And we had anecdotal tales of people driving in, reading the sign and driving straight out again and going to find somewhere else to park. So we backed down, we put a ticket machine into the car park, and almost overnight the car park was full to capacity all the time. And it's now, I think, the car park that earns us the most per space in the entire portfolio. So it wasn't ready for going mobile phone only 5 years ago. So what I'd be interested from members at this stage really is where do you think we are now on this journey? Are we ready to say to customers, okay, any new car parking machines, any new car park, we won't let you pay by cash, but we want you to pay by card? Or so my preferred option from a business point of view is, can we go to mobile phone? So that way customers provide their own infrastructure. We save an absolute fortune in not having to buy and maintain ticket machines. But it does rely on all of our customers having a mobile phone and being comfortable using it and having signal to use it, etc. And my personal view is we're not quite ready for that move, but we could start to nudge, and we could go with cashless card machines as an interim measure for any new installations over the next couple of years, just to see how that goes. If a cash machine reaches the end of its life, we'll replace that one with a card-only machine. And then online transactions, we have again been on a digital transformation journey with our customers. You can now only buy your car parking permit using online self-service. Having said that, our staff do have to handhold and offer a personal service to go online on behalf of the customer in a few cases each month. Not all of our customers are able to do it, but the vast majority now are. So I think that's been a reasonably successful one, but the failure demand is still not right. We still have too many customers who can't make it work, and from time to time the technology has glitches and we have issues with our supplier and they simply can't buy their permit. And I regularly get feedback saying, oh, what have you done? Why can't we do it the old-fashioned way? So it's not all roses, and I don't think we're quite ready to switch off the cash yet, is my honest view. I think we're on a journey, and I think we need to nudge people in that direction. The final point I'll ask you to consider is whether you feel it's the right time to offer some sort of discount tariff for people who are not using cash, or a slightly higher tariff if you insist on using cash to reflect the increased costs of paying by cash. I can sense that that's going to cause confusion. It's going to cause complaint. It could be possibly held up as unfair to people who haven't got access to other means of payment. So I'm reluctant to even suggest it, but I think it's out there. We need to, at the very least, consider it and think about whether that's a good thing to do to try and speed up the move away from cash. Or are you happy with the way we're going? Do you leave things as they are? Are you happy with the information and we carry on the current trajectory and keep you informed? Chair, that's pretty much what I've got on that one.
Thank you so much. At the moment, we've got 3 committee members to speak, but first of all, non-committee members will be Jeff Young. Can I just make a point to Andrew? So I always in Exeter, I used to use the phone for parking on the street, and it was fairly straightforward. More recently, I was in Seaton in the summer and went to do the phone parking on the seafront, and there was one number to phone on one sign that I was using, and then I realized that it wouldn't work, and then I was noticed that there was a separate sign, and that had a different phone number with whoever the new Ringo or whoever the new company were, and I was so fed up by then I just left anyway. I mean, I love a cash, the card thing, because it's so fast. Even when your phone app is working, you know, it does take quite a time to go through press 1 and press 2 and press 3 for how long you want and all that, and confirm it. And yes, I was just sharing my own personal opinions with you. The other thing I wondered, Andrew, would it be at all possible to sort of run a pilot with machines that currently take cash and contactless? Would it be possible to shut off the cash bit with a sign for our residents saying on this machine we're trialing a cashless system? That's so before we've changed our machines to be 100% cashless, you know, is that possible to sort of shut the cash bit off and say, you know, residents, please bear with us, we're trialing contactless only? Are you able to answer that question, Andrew?
Yes, I am, Councillor Andrew. Yes, it would be possible. It may be a way we want to go. We could coincide, actually, you mentioned Ringo and the on-street parking provider. That's been another collaboration with all of the Devon districts. You will find Ringo is the one app you will need everywhere, on-street and off-street, throughout Devon soon. And we're going to make that transition ourselves within the next month or so. And we are now in a position to drop the 20p extra charge that we currently make for paying by phone. So that at the moment, the phone tariff is always 20p extra.
Oh.
But from April, that should be the same tariff, unless members think it should be a different tariff. It doesn't have to be the same tariff, but it will be exactly the same tariff to use mobile phones. So I expect that will increase. And that may be an opportunity to say, like, we've now got this new mobile phone tariff that is now no more expensive than cash, and that may be a chance to say, let's switch off some of the cash options and offer the customer the phone or card option instead.
Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, just mindful of time, those so if people can try and keep their points short. So first of all, I'm going to call on Councillor Young, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think we need to encourage phones. The younger generation love using them. There's an advantage of using a phone. If you overstay on the time, you can, from your location on the beach, you can just top up your phone. That seems to be very handy with my daughter with 2 kids on the beach. They don't know how long they're going to be. I prefer using cards. No faff, you just wander up to the machine and wave it and it's fine. But I think we should be having just one price for whatever you pay, but I don't think we can at the moment chuck out paying cash. There'd be a lot of hoo-ha about that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So my next committee member, please, is Ollie Davey, please.
Thank you, Chair, and I'll keep it short. Yeah, I mean, the pandemic has forced us all into changes in behaviour, hasn't it? Personally, I've barely used cash for the past year because of the risks of cross-infection. I think we've all got used to using contactless, and especially since they raised the limit. Like Councillor Young, I think my preferred method would be the card. As he says, it's quick and easy, absolutely painless. You just flash the card and that's it. I think the more methods we make available, the more people will move away from cash anyway. So I don't think we need to kind of penalise people who want to pay in cash, and I think that might have a disproportionate effect on certain sectors of the population as well. So I think we're going to have to keep that option. But I think gradually people are going to move over to other methods. And I didn't realise it was more expensive to pay by phone. I've never attempted it because I just thought, oh, I know what's going to happen here. I'm going to be hanging on the phone and it's press 1 for this and 2 for that. And no, I'll just stick the cash in. You know, sometimes you haven't got the right cash as well. So being able to offer a number of other options, I think, is very useful. And I think certainly contactless is going to be the way to go, but probably gradually people will move over to phones and we'll be able to phase out the cash eventually. You made a very good suggestion, Chair, of trying some cashless ones. I thought we could try that where there's 2 machines in the same car park or near to each other. You could say you can only pay cashless at this machine, but the other one over there if you want to use cash. It's a bit like the supermarket, you know, if you want to go through the self-service, which I tend to do these days, now it's not so bad about unexpected items in the bagging area, you can get through much more quickly that way. So there's an element of convenience. People are just walking up, waving their card at the machine and moving away. You're not standing behind somebody while they fiddle around to find the right amount of change. So I would suggest that would be worth trialling where we have, and it was just a case of blocking off the money hole, we wouldn't need more than that, just a little plate over it, just to say that, you know, cash is not available at this machine, but you can do it over there, but only where there's an alternative available.
Okay, thank you. Next to come, sorry, is Eleanor, Councillor Eleanor Rylance, I beg your pardon, Councillor Eleanor Rylance.
Thank you, Chair. I think the key thing about paying for parking is simplicity. I think people seek simplicity. So for a lot of people at the moment, it's simpler to drive up with a jar of cash and just stick your coins in. I actually personally think it's iniquitous that we are offering that as we're actually charging more for online and web-based payments than we are for cash, particularly if the cash has a cost associated with it. I think we need to investigate the parking charges so that we can actually build in the cost of administering the cash, including any potential, you know, like damage bill of the machines into the cost of parking. Now, most people these days, their pensions and their pay is paid straight into their bank account. Nearly everybody has a debit card. And particularly, as Councillor Davies said, in the age of COVID, people want to have as little contact with things that other people might have touched as possible. Unfortunately, contactless payment for car parking isn't exactly entirely contactless, is it? Because you do have to touch the machine to indicate how many hours you want, and possibly also put in your number plate, depending on the machine. So we probably need to investigate how we can make it possible to pay in such a way that people didn't actually have to touch the machine at all, if we really are offering this as sort of, you know, halfway house between, well, basically as a public health thing, really. So I did have an idea, and that is that obviously it's better if people do pay not in cash. I mean, any of the methods other than cash. Is it possible, where we have several car parks very nearby to each other, that we trial making one of these car parks entirely cashless and just see how it goes? So I'm thinking mostly of Exmouth Seafront, for example, where we've got several car parks, and we could make one of those car parks entirely cashless. And obviously, for people who want the flexibility of being able to stay on for longer, they might use the web app. And for people who want the simplicity, they might just use tapping their card and getting a ticket out, which they then put in their car, and then they have to go back and get a new ticket and tap their card again if they want to stay for longer. But basically, if you convert people's cash parking at the moment into contactless card parking, because that to me offers the simplicity and the lack of contact, the less contact, whilst at the same time offering the flexibility to people who are able to use the web apps and you know, mobile phone parking. One comment I would make about our car parking signage is that it's incredibly busy at the moment already, and for people with sight problems, and you know, obviously people with sight problems probably aren't driving around all that much, but people like me who is well corrected in my vision, I find a mass of text on a sign very complicated to read quickly, and you end up idling next to the sign trying to work out what the parking charges are, what the various options are. Can we slim down the signage whilst slightly complicating the payment schedule is my question, because it could be a problem. So basically simplicity. Yes, encourage people to go contactless, but don't forget people who can't actually manage web apps and find reading masses of text quite difficult.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Thank you. And lastly, Councillor Maddie Chapman, and then I'm going to be looking for recommendations, please.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Well, personally, I always use card. My grandson used their phones. And I agree that if we can trial a cash car park with the card and see how it goes. I am a bit worried about doing this at the moment, and I think maybe we should defer to after the pandemic. Knowing how many people are struggling and having a hard time, it's also a question, sad as though it is, that some people will be having problems with their banks, and therefore they might need to use the cash. And I think to start changing things right after or in the middle of a pandemic is not a good idea. We need to get things back moving and rolling and then do the trials maybe, and then decide where we want to go. So I'm a bit reticent about trying to change things as we are at the moment, as I say, because a lot of people are having financial difficulties and the banks might have put stops on their card. You know, so we don't want to make life any more difficult for our residents than it already is and has been. And we don't know how long it's going to go on for. So where I'm quite happy to trial a cash and a card in a car park in different areas, perhaps, to see how it goes. I wouldn't like to immediately start changing things at the moment, because I don't think the public could take it, quite honestly. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Andrew, can I just ask you a very quick question? Is there much difference? You've given us very helpfully a breakdown of cash in car parks and online payments. Is there any trend? Do you see that any particular car parks use cash more? For example, the shopping car parks or the beach car parks use card more or phone. Is there any trend that's been identified? And there might not be. So just a quick question.
Yeah, no, I can't pretend I've done a detailed analysis, but I could be asked to go back and do that. But my response to that anecdotally is it's the visitors. Our locals are less geared up for it, but when you get the visitors in numbers, during the visitor season, the amount of money coming through on mobile phone particularly is much, much higher. So the people from elsewhere already used to using it have kick-started this process. The local regulars have been slower to make the shift, I think is fair to say. And the point on signage and simplification of the signage is a really good one, and we have tried, believe me, we've tried a lot over the last 10 years. I personally don't think we've got it right, and maybe we should think about some sort of focus group to help us do that. I mean, we've got our own teams, and we work with the council's design team, and we do put a lot of effort into it, and we have done some market testing. But yeah, if we alter the message and put more complexity into it, it could be horrific. So we need to be really careful on that. So I'd even wonder whether the TaFF would like to sort of test some of that revised signage and messaging, because it is really important. And I would say we have tried really hard, but I don't think we've quite got it right.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So recommendations then, are any forthcoming? If not, I will make one. Does anybody want to put forward a recommendation for this item? Okay, so my first recommendation would be then that that in order to encourage more use by cashless payment, that we can perhaps trial on certain in car parks, not making perhaps a whole car park cashless, but making some machines cashless, so that perhaps we just notifying our residents, with signage that we are trialing some cashless machines to see how that progresses. So could that be a recommendation that we would like to, in car parks with multiple payment options, to trial having just one machine available for cash?
Yes, Chair.
Can we vote on that one, please, with blue hands? Lovely, thank you. So I think that one is carried. Thank you. You can lower your blue hands. The other recommendation I would like to make, and endorsing what people have said, is that signage in car parks should be reviewed in order to simplify signage. Councillor Rylance, do you want to make a point about that very quickly?
Yes, I have a corollary. Is it worth having a very simple sign that is alongside the car parking signage, addressed at East Devon residents, advising them of the annual parking permits?
I think that's a very good idea. Should we have those as two separate recommendations? Should we recommend it? Recommendation 1 is that we should review signage in order to simplify it. And can we just vote on that one first of all? And then the next recommendation would be that one additional separate sign should notify residents how they can buy their permits cashless and online. Can we do it that way? So
Chair, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, Chair. I mean, those signs do already exist. It's something we do promote, but I would say we could perhaps have it more prominent. By the sound of it, we haven't noticed it, so maybe we should make that piece of messaging more prominent.
Thank you. Thank you. First recommendation then, simplification of signage. Signage to be reviewed and simplified. Can we vote on that one? Do we need to say who is going to do that? Do we need in our recommendation?
I suppose my question, Chair, would you like it back? Would you like us to bring some ideas back to you, or would you like officers to get on and do it?
Yes, please. Could officers bring us back? Yes, some ideas. I think in some cases, like in Sidmouth, in the Manor Road car park, there's just so many contradictory statements on one sign. So yeah, simplification of signage by officers to bring back to the car parking TaFF would be very, very helpful. So if we could just vote on that. Sorry, I haven't voted yet. I voted now. So that's what we're voting on. Thank you. That's carried. And then next recommendation is that that more prominence should be given to the existing signs about residents being able to buy their permits online. So that recommendation is carried. And I think the last recommendation would be that for the time being, that we would not mix the tariffs, depending on what is that what people are thinking, that we don't complicate the tariff by saying you pay more with your card or less with your cash, or can we say that? But for the time being, we keep the tariff across the board, regardless of what payment method you're using. Is that what we're thinking? So, right, so if we can just vote on that. So this is a vote. Okay, that looks like it's carried unanimously, that we keep the payment even across all the tariffs. Thank you. Okay, thank you so much for that. So we now need to move on. Excuse me. To agenda item 7C, just mindful of time. I'm hoping to wind this up by 12:30 because we're running into the lunch hour. So agenda item 7C, alternative sources of revenue from car parks, so events, advertising, private sector management options. So again, Andrew, if you could just, I know just you've given us some indication in your pre-meeting report that you would actually like to hear from committee members. But if you'd just like to introduce this, thank you.
Well, by way of introduction, it's been laid down as a challenge to me for several years by successive portfolio holders and also I think by one of the earlier TaFFs, that isn't another way we can raise revenue using these plots of land. And instinctively I say there probably is. You know, we've had interest in running, say, car boot sales on car parks. There's a possibility of farmers markets using the space. I think we had one running in Budleigh Salterton for a few years. There's certainly opportunities to use the space for advertising. Some of that would be subject to a separate planning application, but you know, you do see advertising in car parks elsewhere. And it was just really to get members' thoughts as to whether that's an appropriate way to go. Is there something there we ought to be exploiting, and to what extent? You know, do you see? You know, could we use car parks as a drive-in movie night venue, for example? We had interest in doing that last year from the parish council in Beer. I don't think it happened because of the pandemic, but again, ideas have come up. We generally don't want to say no, but we'd quite like some boundaries if members think that's appropriate, so we can perhaps even use it as part of our events marketing going forward. Or maybe the car parks simply are event parking to go along with events that take place elsewhere. And maybe that's the reality. But I've got no firm proposals at the moment, just looking for ideas.
Thank you so much. Yes. So I don't see any non-committee members' hands up. I'm just double checking that no non-committee members wish to speak. So we'll go straight to committee members. So it's Councillor Eleanor Rylance, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say that it sounds like a rather an exciting sort of social opportunity, really, to be able, especially in this pandemic year, really, to be able to offer car parks up for social purposes. I mean, if ever there were a year in which there would be a need for a drive-in cinema, it's this year. So, you know, I absolutely think we should be trying to expand the use of our car parks, particularly in the low times, maybe in the evenings, and maybe, you know, hiving off a car park to use for such a purpose would be a very good idea. I mean, I think we should try it. Suck it and see, I say.
Thank you. Thank you. I agree. I think hadn't really thought about the movie nights, but yeah, when the car parks tend to be quieter anyway. Any more comments from committee members on that one? Councillor Kim Bloxham, please.
Again, really just to agree with Councillor Rylance there, because again, we've got only a pub car park in Cranbrook, and that's been used for a film night, for community events, and so I totally support using the car parks for other events.
Thank you. Councillor Maddie Chapman, please.
Yes, I'm not sure about the car parks in Exmouth, the big ones. They're usually pretty full during the summer. To shut them down, I think we were getting a lot of trouble. We wouldn't have anywhere to park, bearing in mind that we do have the Strand and the Wreck nearby. So no, I'm a bit worried about losing car parking because obviously we got the cafe culture in the Strand. So we're trying to get people to come in to have a meal, have a few drinks, etc., etc. And so the car parks around the outside of the town are where people park to go into the centre of town for the night time. So, so doing something like this, I don't know if that will work in Exmouth. I'd be very, very wary of that because we have got the open spaces, we've got Queen's Drive, we've got the Wreck, we've got the Strand where events can be put on, where we hold farmers markets, etc. So, I don't know if we could do that in our car parks. I think it would cause problems. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. So just to summarise then, perhaps if this does receive support for the evening cinemas, that it would need to be carefully managed, site-specific and different for each town. Yes, for sure. Councillor Ollie Davey, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very quick because I've just been advised my laptop battery is low and I need to plug it in. So yeah, I'm with Maddie on this one. I think where there are suitable alternative public spaces, we probably don't need to worry too much. But there may be areas where there are, the car park actually is a huge open space, little used in the evenings perhaps, where you could have alternative events. Certainly, I stayed in a town in France where you were simply tipped off the car park on market day, and I was advised, well, you can't park there in market day. So I can't remember what we did. We had to go and park somewhere. I'm not sure that would work here either. You'd simply get people using on-street parking and adding to congestion there. But I think where there are no alternative public spaces, it could be a really useful thing to do. And of course, it doesn't have to be the whole car park either. Although some of our car parks do get busy in the evening in Exmouth, if you had a line of stalls along one side for an event, I don't think it would necessarily mean that nobody was able to park there. So using small areas of the car park could be an option as well. You have all sorts of things on there, pop-up vans of selling things. You could have all sorts of things.
Thank you. So I see no more hands up. Just my own view on this would be, I know things like farmers markets and sort of can be very popular. I'm not sure about mixing open car parking and market stalls in the same car park. I was just thinking about, you know, that if you had a market, you wouldn't probably want people attempting to park in any area, given that there might be children and all sorts of people milling about. So I'd just be cautious about mixed spaces. But certainly lots of towns do have something like a Monday morning market in their car parks. I think we have to be sensitive to, if we're talking about markets and farmers markets, sensitive to the local businesses that are, you know, where they are paying fixed, you know, business rates and all their overheads and things like that. So we wouldn't want to detract from local business, but I would think, you know, perhaps a once a month farmers market type scenario might work in certain locations. The one idea that I'm not so keen on myself is the issue of advertising around car parks. I don't know what other people think. I just given the sensitivity of our areas, whether, I don't know, if other people have views on the selling of advertising space in our car parks. Is that the sort of atmosphere that we want to generate? But of course, members may have a different view. So I've just seen two hands. Maddie, do you have a view on that point?
I most certainly do. I agree with you, Chair.
Thank you. And Ollie?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to find that the car parking ticket is going to become a thing of the past, probably. And in the past, that ticket was often used on the back of it for advertising. Yes. So there could be a kind of potential loss of revenue there. I would be quite happy, actually, to see small local advertising. I mean, if I get out in a car park and I see an advert for a local coffee shop or a local business that's supplying something I want, or whatever it is, the leisure centre, perhaps with directions, I'm going to head there. So I think that there could be an opportunity for local businesses to be able to purchase a modest amount of space for a reasonable charge, knowing it might give them a commercial advantage. So I'm not totally against it, but I agree we don't want to see our car parks surrounded by lurid signs. But I think there could be possibilities there to investigate.
Right. Yes. Perhaps with, I don't know, certain notice boards or something. I don't know. Would that be the sort of thing, a local notice board where I just, the thing I was against was those big plastic things that are stuck up with cable ties and, you know, tied to the fence around the car park, which is sort of slightly hideous.
Chair.
Councillor Chapman.
Chair, may I come back in?
Oh, yes, please, Andrew, please do.
Just on the advertising, I mean, Councillor Davies, right, we have seen that back of ticket advertising fall off. We used to do a reasonable amount of business and made some money in that way over many years, and I think that's probably a reflection of the way our customers perhaps are paying for their parking using their phone and not even getting a ticket. So I think the industry is recognising that direction of travel, and they seem to have lost interest in it. So that you're right, Councillor Davies, I think that's going to disappear completely. And very often, if you buy a ticket in East Devon at the moment, it'll say this advertising space is available if you're interested, but no one seems to be. So that's gone for sure.
Thank you. Thank you. So recommendations then, please. Do we have recommendations from the TaFF, please? Councillor, sorry, I didn't see who went first. Councillor Rylance, can you?
Well, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to recommend that we do explore alternative uses for off-peak times in the car parks in East Devon. I mean, it's pretty simple. I don't know whether we can refine it in any way, but
yeah. And who would do that?
Possibly the possibly part of the portfolio holder for the economy, I would suggest, but it's a number of different portfolios, isn't it?
Yes.
So I want to say maybe the portfolio holder for the economy plus Andrew Ennis. I mean, because it is about car parks.
Okay.
I don't know.
So first of all, is there a seconder for that recommendation? Yes, Councillor Davey.
If I can just add to that, we do have a kind of commercial events coordinator. I've forgotten her name now. I'll get there in a minute. Henry's partner, I presume.
Yeah.
She shares the surname or relative anyway.
Isn't it Angela?
Thank you. Angela Gordon-Lennox, that's right. I would have thought she'd be the person to investigate that, because I think she's looking at maximising use of council assets. And just to clarify the point I make about using part of car parks, I was kind of envisaging this happening where it's adjacent to a walkway, for instance, so you could access part of it without walking through the car park. Well, let's face it, people walk through car parks all the time anyway, and I agree there could be a conflict there, but I think that could be managed, and you could cordon off an area so it was very clear where that was happening.
Okay, so can we, yeah.
Chair, may I come back? So we do work with Angela Gordon-Lennox, and this is already an ongoing thing. We already welcome other uses in car parks. This is more about the tough thinking of ideas where we could generate revenue and maximise it. So I'm very happy to take an action that we work together with the portfolio holder to try and promote and seek other uses. It's already an ongoing piece of work, so it won't come as a shock to us. That's
okay. Fine. All right, so can we just put that to the vote then, make sure everybody is on board? So those in favour of that recommendation? Lovely. I think that's and Maddie, are you you're not voting in favour of that at the moment, so is that correct? We've got 4.
Chair, I would like it noted that, you know, the sensitivity of the area and not maximising car parks. As I say, I don't think it needs to be in Exmouth because we have got the open space and we have got the culture. So I think what we're actually asking Angela to do is to look at places where perhaps they could do that. But I don't think in the main car parks around Exmouth town centre should be one of the places because it will cause absolute chaos.
Okay.
So that's why I haven't voted for it.
No, that's fine. So shall we say 4 in favour? And Maddie, do you want to abstain or against?
Yes, I will abstain.
Okay, so 4 in favour of that recommendation, 1 abstention. Any further?
Chair, sorry,
yes.
Chair, can I just for the minutes, I know we've just had the vote, but on that subject, a good example of where we've worked with car parks and made an event happen would be the Exmouth Festival, where we do actually give over one of the car parks to use as part of the festival for that week, because the recreation ground on its own isn't sufficient. So, you know, we have got flexibility, and we will work with event organisers and local members to make sure things happen in the best possible way.
Thank you, Andrew, for that clarification. That's very helpful. I see one last hand, Eleanor Rylance. If I'll make this our last speaker, Councillor Rylance, please.
A legacy hand, sorry, Chair.
Oh, sorry, thank you. Okay, so that brings us, I don't think there are any further recommendations there. So that brings us on to item 8, any other matters and next steps. So our next meeting is scheduled at the moment for Wednesday, the 3rd of March, and that is to discuss camper vans. The subsequent meeting after that, the date's not yet arranged, but we're hoping later in March that will bring back the item on car parks that don't generate an income, which was sort of a hangover from our last meeting on the 2nd of February. And then obviously more agenda items to follow. So that brings our meeting to an end. I'd like to thank everyone, including any members of the public watching online, for taking part. Can I just remind those present that the supporting officer will confirm when the meeting is no longer being recorded or going live, and until then your comments will be live to the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.